Welcome to the first part of the Python for Beginners series. This series is intended for beginners who have never encountered the language and want to learn everything from scratch. In this part, we will briefly talk about what the Python language is, where we can meet it, and what it can be used for. I will show you how to install the language interpreter in macOS, Windows, and Linux. We will install the VS Code editor, including the necessary plugins, and the very useful Jupyter tool. The next parts will be more comprehensive. We will talk about conventions when writing code, variables, Python data types, conditions, loops, and learn how to write our own functions and objects. By the end of the series, we will be able to write simple scripts, custom functions, import and use some basic libraries that come with Python. So what exactly is Python? And why should you learn it? Python is an open-source programming language. It was created to be easy to read and understand even for novice programmers. Python is very powerful and, thanks to its extensibility, a completely universal tool for solving simple and complex tasks. The popularity of Python is really great and it is still growing. Python is used in many branches of information technology. We can encounter this in software development, web development, machine learning, data analysis and visualization, software testing and prototyping, among others. You can create a graphical user interface with the Qt or GTK libraries. You can create web applications with Django or Flask libraries. NumPy library can be used for scientific calculations. For projects dealing with bulk data processing and their visualization, statistical calculations, and so on, you can use the Pandas and Matplotlib libraries. The PyTorch and TensorFlow libraries are intended for machine and deep learning on text, time, or image data. For web scraping or testing, you can use the Selenium and Beautiful Soap libraries. The extensibility of Python is enormous. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of additional libraries extend the capabilities of the Python language and make it truly universal. We will talk about the most used libraries in other series. I will try to explain some in more detail so that we can use them effectively. So, first things first. Before we start using Python, we need to prepare a learning and development environment on our computer. First, we will need to install the language interpreter. The next step will be to install the Integrated Development Environment, IDE for short. This will provide us with comfortable tools for creating and editing Python code, provide us with valuable help, and help us detect any errors while writing our code. The installation differs depending on the system you are using, and I will show you step by step how to install Python on macOS, Windows, and finally Linux. Now you can easily jump to where the installation for your operating system begins. On macOS computers, installation packages are not available in the App Store. You can get it on python.org website in the Downloads section. There is, however, another alternative installation method for macOS, which I personally recommend. We will use the HOMEBREW installer, which will do the dirty work for us and which we can use later to install other applications, including, for example, the MySQL database server. In addition, it will be easier to keep installed applications updated. Let's open a web browser and navigate to brew.sh. In the upper half of the page, there is a command for installation. The command is the same for macOS and Linux systems. Simply copy the command to the clipboard with the button on the right. Next, open Terminal window, enter the command and run it. Since system administrator privileges are required for installation, enter a password. The installation script asks once again if you are serious about the installation. And that's all. Now you have the HOMEBREW Manager installed. If you want, you can explore HOMEBREW either on the project pages or by running the brew-help command. Now we can proceed to the installation of Python itself. Simply run brew install Python command in a terminal window. As you can see, HOMEBREW will download and install the latest version. In our case, Python 3.10. To verify the installation, we enter the command, which Python 3. As you can see, the relevant program is located in the USR bin directory. If we write the command Python 3 version, we get information about version 3.9. But that's not the version we installed before. In order to run the correct version, we need to tell the system where to look for it. We do this by modifying the shell configuration. The configuration file is in the home directory and is called .zshrc on macOS. Let's open it in the editor. Your file may look a little different, but we'll focus on the changes that are important to us. We have several options. We can set the directory search order. We can say that we want to prioritize programs that are installed by the HOMEBREW manager. We can do this by changing the path system variable. The version installed by the HOMEBREW manager will now be preferred. Or we can write an alias for the Python 3 and pip 3 programs like this. The third, and in my opinion the best option, is to change the order of the search directories and at the same time create Python and pip aliases that will refer to the current versions installed by the HOMEBREW manager. This change allows us to run the language interpreter with the Python command, instead of Python 3, which is annoying. After all these steps, it is necessary to restart the terminal for the changes to take effect. After logging in again, we can try the which command to see if everything was successful. As you can see, everything is fine. The next step in setting up your computer is to install an integrated development environment, IDE for short. The IDE will allow us to comfortably write code, alert us to mistakes we make, and generally make our work more pleasant by automating some activities. I personally use Versus Code, but there are other applications like Pycharm and others. It depends on your preferences and experience which environment will suit you the most. Open your browser and go to code.visualstudio.com. Right on the opening page, there is a link to download the universal package for macOS. The package is compressed into a zip file and does not contain the standard installation utility. After extracting the archive, just drag and drop Visual Studio Code into the Applications folder. Before starting the application, a warning may appear that the program is downloaded from the internet. This depends on your security settings. After running the application, we will install the basic plugin for Python. Click on the extension icon and search for the keyword Python. The IntelliSense plugin provided by Microsoft will be offered first. Just click Install and that's it. We won't need the IDE at this point, you can just close it. The last step of the installation will be setting up Jupyter Lab. Jupyter is an interactive web-based development environment for creating notebooks, writing code, and visualizing data. It allows you to write and run Python code in a browser window and displays output at the same time. We will use it to demonstrate the features of the language and to write short code snippets. In the terminal window, run the pip install Jupyter Lab command. The package will download and install itself. Once we have the package installed, it's easy to run. Enter the Jupyter Notebook command in the terminal. As seen, Jupyter starts its own web server and automatically opens browsers for us to work on. Excellent work! We installed the Python development environment. Now you can skip the installation for Windows and Linux and we will continue further. There are basically two ways to install Python on Windows. The installation file for the Windows operating system is available in the Microsoft Store. Just search by name as you can see, select the latest version and start the installation. So we are currently installing version 3.11. This method installs Python for the current user only. The second installation method allows you to install Python for all users of the system. You need to download the installation package from python.org website. After starting the installation, you need to check the option Add Python to Path and choose Customize Installation. In the next step, you need to check the option Install Python for all users. After installation, you can verify that everything is fine and that the interpreter was installed correctly. Open a terminal window and type Python version. As you can see, Python reports on the 3.11 version we installed. The next step in setting up our computer is necessarily the installation of an integrated development environment, IDE for short. In this series, I will be using Visual Studio Code, which is provided for free by Microsoft. The program is also available from the Microsoft Store. As in the previous step, we will search for and install the application. The IDE will allow us to comfortably write code, alert us to mistakes we make, and generally make our work more pleasant by automating some activities. I personally use Versus Code, but there are other applications like PyCharm and others. It depends on your preferences and experience which environment will suit you the most. Visual Studio Code can be launched both from the application menu and from the terminal by entering the code command. After running the application, we will install the basic plugin for Python. Click on the extension icon and search for the keyword Python. The IntelliSense plugin provided by Microsoft will be offered first. Just click Install and that's it. We won't need the IDE at this point, you can just close it. In the last step, we install Jupyter Lab. Jupyter is an interactive web-based development environment for creating notebooks, writing code, and visualizing data. It allows you to write and run Python code in a browser window and displays output at the same time. We will use it to demonstrate the features of the language and to write short code snippets. In Windows, the installation is a little more complicated than in macOS or Linux. We run the command pip install Jupyter Notebook in the terminal. At the end of the installation process, the script warns us that the installation directory is not listed in the path system variable. In order to set up the path, you need to perform several steps. Copy the name of the directory where Jupyter was installed from the terminal window. Now we add it to a system variable so that Windows knows where to look for the application. Press Windows and S and search for environment. Click on Edit System Environment Variables. In the dialog, click on the Environment Variables button. Edit the path variable in the User Variables section and add the path copied from the terminal to it. After reopening the terminal, the path will already be set. Once we have the package installed, it's easy to run. Enter the Jupyter Notebook command in the terminal. As seen, Jupyter starts its own web server and automatically opens browsers for us to work on. Excellent work! We installed the Python development environment. Now you can skip the installation for Linux and we will continue further. Installation on Linux operating systems is very simple. Let's start the terminal and try to find out the version of Python installed. This is because the language interpreter is already installed on Linux systems because it is used by the system itself. The command python -- version tells us that there is no such command on the system, but it offers Python 3 instead. So we correct the command and as you can see, Python is installed at version 3.10. No need to update the version to a newer one, we'll leave that to system updates. As you can see, we are missing the pip3 program, which is Python's package manager. We will have to install it. Therefore, we enter the command sudo apt install python 3-pip. Since it's annoying to type the command python 3 instead of Python when we start the language interpreter, we create an alias for this command. create a .bash_aliases file in your home directory. Put aliases for Python and pip in it. After logging in again, the aliases will work. If you don't want to log out, just start the shell again with the bash command. Now we can run the interpreter with a simple Python command without a version number. The next step in setting up your computer is to install an integrated development environment, IDE for short. The IDE will allow us to comfortably write code, alert us to mistakes we make, and generally make our work more pleasant by automating some activities. I personally use Versus Code, but there are other applications like Pycharm and others. It depends on your preferences and experience which environment will suit you the most. Visual Studio Code is easiest to install from the Ubuntu Software Center. Search for VS Code and install the application. Visual Studio Code can be launched both from the application menu and from the terminal by entering the code command. After running the application, we will install the basic plugin for Python. Click on the extension icon and search for the keyword Python. The IntelliSense plugin provided by Microsoft will be offered first. Just click Install and that's it. We won't need the IDE at this point, you can just close it. The last step of the installation will be setting up Jupyter Lab. Jupyter is an interactive web-based development environment for creating notebooks, writing code, and visualizing data. It allows you to write and run Python code in a browser window and displays output at the same time. We will use it to demonstrate the features of the language and to write short code snippets. In the terminal window, run sudo pip install Jupyter Notebook command. The package will download and install itself. Once we have the package installed, it's easy to run. Enter the Jupyter Notebook command in the terminal. As seen, Jupyter starts its own web server and automatically opens browsers for us to work on. Excellent work! We installed the Python development environment. Every tutorial for beginners must always start with the first program, called Hello World. This one will be no exception, but first let's get a little familiar with Jupyter. Create your first notebook. In the upper right corner, click New and select Python 3. Jupyter opened a new tab for us and created a notebook file. For better orientation, you can rename the file, just click on the title and write the new name. As you can see, after a while, the name has also changed in the directory with the saved files. Let's go back to our notebook. In the lower part there is a cell for writing commands. At the moment it is blue, which means it is not active. As soon as we click on it, the color changes to green and Jupyter waits for a Python command to be entered. We can try it out now and write a simple command to multiply two numbers. If we press enter, the editor moves to the next line and we can insert the next command in the sequence. To run the command, you need to press Shift and enter. The current cell can also be run by clicking the Run button in the menu. The command was executed and the result was printed. At the same time, a new cell was created for entering a new command. And as I promised, Hello World cannot be missed. Let's write a command in a new cell. Print bracket quotes Hello World exclamation mark. As you can see, Jupyter has completed the closing parenthesis and quotation marks for you. Press Shift and enter. Nice! Let's take a closer look at what happened. In this cell, Jupyter expected to insert a command. It is an input cell. After running, the result appeared. This is the output cell. At the same time, the number of the input and output cells has changed. This indicates the order of the command that was executed. The program we created has only one line so far. It calls the built-in function print, which we pass exactly one parameter. This parameter is a string expression containing the sentence "Hello World." About expressions and data types we will talk in the next part of the series. I will show how to work with different data types and what to use them for. So that's all for today's part. We learned how to install Python, VS Code IDE, Python plugins and Jupyter Notebook for quick experiments. If you like the Python series for beginners, don't forget to subscribe and I'd appreciate a like too. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode where we will talk about the basics of Python syntax.